Maren Ellis was 19 the winter she started sleeping in her car. Her Honda's heater barely worked, so she wore 2 coats and double-wool socks, keeping a thermos of coffee between her knees just to feel warm. She had aged out of foster care the year before, and the independence everyone had promised turned out to be a diner job and a paycheck that never quite stretched far enough for rent and food. She wasn't proud of where she'd ended up, but she'd learned to survive in small, quiet ways. One of those ways was Thursdays, when she'd drive to the self-storage auction on Route 9. She never bid. She just liked watching people hope for something, an old coin collection, a dead man's tools, anything that might change their luck. It cost nothing to stand in the cold and imagine. "Anyone?" he said again, half a question, half a joke. Maren surprised herself. "I'll take it," she said. She had exactly $14 in her pocket, meant for gas and a sandwich. She handed over a 10, and just like that, Unit 114 belonged to her for the next hour, until the facility manager wanted it cleared. She almost regretted it walking over. The recliner was ruined, water-stained, and torn. The rug smelled like a basement no one had opened in years. But the boxes were dry, taped shut, and heavier than she expected. She loaded them into her trunk and backseat, thanked the manager, and drove to the gas station lot where she usually parked for the night. Under the buzzing lot lights, she cut the tape on the first box, expecting the same disappointment she always braced for. Instead, she found stacks of paperback novels, worn but cared for, spines cracked from real reading. She smiled. She liked books, and something to read on cold nights sounded almost like luck. She kept digging. The second box held folded clothes, a woman's, size small, still faintly smelling of lavender detergent. Sad, but ordinary. The third box was where things changed. Underneath a layer of old sweaters, wrapped in a pillowcase, she found a small metal cash box. It wasn't locked. Inside were rolled bills, not a fortune, but $400 in 10s and 20s, held together with a rubber band gone brittle with age. Maren sat in the driver's seat for a long moment, engine running for heat, just staring at the money. It was more cash than she'd held in one place in over a year. She counted it twice, hands shaking slightly, unsure whether to feel guilty or grateful. She decided, for now, simply to keep looking. The fourth box held photographs, hundreds of them, loose and in albums, black and white fading to sepia, then later ones in faded color. A woman, young in the earliest photos, aged gracefully through the decades in the later ones. Weddings, birthdays, a man in a military uniform, children growing up in the backgrounds of backyard barbecues. Whoever had lived this life had lived it fully, surrounded by people who loved her. The fifth box was heavier, and when Maren opened it, she found small velvet pouches. Inside the first was a strand of pearls. Inside the second, a gold locket with a tiny photo of a baby tucked behind the glass. A third pouch held a man's pocket watch, engraved on the back, "To Walter, with all my love, Eleanor, 1958. She realized this wasn't just junk left behind. This had been someone's whole life, packed away and abandoned to unpaid fees. Whoever Eleanor was, she had once been loved enormously, and her belongings had ended up auctioned off for the price of a meal. The sixth box, the last one, was the one that truly stopped her. Inside was a stack of unopened letters, dozens of them, addressed to an Eleanor Whitfield at an address in the next town over, the return addresses all belonging to a law office. Curious and a little afraid, Maren opened the top envelope. It was a notice, a final notice, about an inheritance account left unclaimed for over a decade, urging Eleanor Whitfield to contact the office regarding funds held in her name from her late husband's estate. The account, it said, exceeded $80,000. Maren read it twice, then a third time, thinking she'd misunderstood. She hadn't. Beneath that letter were nearly a dozen more, each one a follow-up, growing more urgent in tone, the last one dated just 8 months ago, warning that after a certain date, unclaimed funds would revert to the state. Her first instinct was pure panic. This wasn't hers. None of it, the cash box, the jewelry, and especially not this letter about tens of thousands of dollars, was rightfully hers to claim. She sat there in the gas station lot, heater humming, boxes surrounding her like strange company, and she cried for the first time in months. Not from sadness exactly, but from the sheer, dizzying unfairness of everything, that she was homeless with $14 to her name, that somewhere out there Eleanor Whitfield had lost track of a fortune, and that fate had tangled their lives together over an unpaid storage bill. She didn't sleep that night. In the morning, she drove straight to the law office listed on the letters. She explained everything to the receptionist: the auction, the $10, the boxes, the letters she hadn't been able to stop herself from opening. She fully expected to be turned away, maybe even accused of something. Instead, an attorney named Mr. Doyle listened carefully, then asked her to wait while he made a call. It turned out Eleanor Whitfield had passed away nearly a year earlier, in a nursing facility, with no immediate family reachable and a storage unit whose payments quietly lapsed. The firm had been trying to locate next of kin to release the inheritance, but the trail had gone cold. Walter had left everything to her decades before, and with Eleanor's passing and no clear heir, the funds were now headed for the state's unclaimed property division unless someone with rightful standing came forward. Mr. Doyle explained Marin had no legal claim to the money herself, but he added something unexpected. Because she had brought the letters forward honestly, rather than pocketing the cash box and disappearing, the firm intended to petition the court for a finder's fee tied to the recovered estate. It wouldn't be $80,000, but it would be something real, earned simply by being decent when no one would have known otherwise. Months passed while paperwork moved through the courts. Marin kept the photographs and letters in her care, treating them gently, like they belonged to a grandmother she'd never had. She got a job at a warehouse and, eventually, moved into a small studio apartment, no longer sleeping in her car. It wasn't the money that changed things immediately. It was simply having somewhere warm to be that first week that mattered most. When the court finalized things, the finder's fee came through, $11,000. It wasn't life-changing in the way movies make such moments look, but for a 19-year-old who'd been counting gas station coffee as dinner, it was enormous. She paid off her small debts, put a deposit down on a better apartment, and set aside the rest, determined not to waste the one break life had finally handed her. She kept one thing from the boxes for herself: Walter's pocket watch, the one engraved to Eleanor. She had it cleaned and repaired, and she carried it, not because it was worth much, but because it reminded her that somewhere out there, a woman named Eleanor Whitfield had once been loved completely, and that even after everything, the empty storage unit, the unpaid bills, the quiet ending in a nursing home, some trace of that love had found its way into the hands of someone who needed a reminder that things could still turn out okay. In the weeks after the ruling, Marin returned once to the gas station lot where she'd first opened those boxes. She sat with the pocket watch in her palm, tracing the engraving with her thumb, thinking about how close she had come to keeping the cash and saying nothing. No one would have known. She thought often about Eleanor Whitfield, a stranger who had somehow reached across death and hardship to hand her a second chance. She asked Mr. Doyle's office for permission to visit Eleanor's grave, and one Sunday she drove to a modest cemetery on the edge of town, leaving white flowers and a photograph of Eleanor and Walter laughing together on some long-forgotten summer day. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I'll try to be someone worth all this." Life didn't become easy overnight. She still worked long shifts, still budgeted carefully, still remembered the cold. But she carried herself differently now, steadier. She began volunteering once a month at a shelter near where she used to park, handing out blankets to people who reminded her of who she used to be. Years later, when people asked how her life had changed at 19, she never led with the finder's fee. She led with the $10 bid, the boxes nobody wanted, and the choice she made in a parking lot to do right when walking away would have been so much easier. Marin never forgot the $10 bid that changed her life. Not because of the money it eventually brought her, but because of what it taught her, that even at her lowest, she still had a choice about who she wanted to be. And in choosing honesty over easy money, she found her way out of homelessness after all, not through luck alone, but through the quiet decision to do right by a stranger's memory.